Woke
We
Supremacy
begin
News.
with the Freedom Riders, the group of white and black civil rights activists who rode buses across the South in 1961 with the goal of integrating public transportation and bus terminals. One of the original 13 Freedom Riders was the late, great Congressman John Lewis. It was a bold act of resistance to challenge the nation's segregation laws, and the riders encountered violence, beatings, and jail time. The very first ride was firebombed by a white mob in Alabama. The rides, however, would go on to transform America, setting the stage for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Change is often met with resistance, which is why the next year, white segregationists concocted a viciously racist plan, offering black people one-way tickets to the North or to the West with the promise of a better life. These bus trips were dubbed reverse freedom rides. Here's Betty Williams on how her mother was lured onto one of them in 1962.
My mother was told she was going to have better everything. She was going to have a job and she was going to be able to support her family, and her children was going to be able to get an education, be able to go to school. That alone was not the truth.
Betty's mother was Layla Mae Williams of Arkansas. And those weren't the only lies that she was told. The segregationists promised Williams a presidential welcome in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. Here she is. Notice her outfit, the dress, a triple string of pearls, a white hat, the outfit that she changed into because she was told President John F. Kennedy would be greeting her upon arrival. When she arrived, he wasn't there. There was no job or housing, nothing. Southern segregationists hatched this plan to be cruel, for certain, but also to retaliate against Northern liberals who they believed would be unable to accommodate their new black residents. It would expose them as hypocrites. This was how owning the libs looked in 1962.
The Northern liberals and the NAACP, Urban League, and people like that especially, they have been crying the sing-song in behalf of the Negroes throughout the nation. And, of course, now when it comes time for them to put up or shut up, they have shut up.
That was George Singleman, a reverse freedom rides organizer 60 years ago, but sounding, almost exactly like, a modern-day Republican using people, human lives, as pawns to make a political, and let's face it, a racist point. Sending people of color fleeing political and economic turmoil to the North to stick it to progressive policies. Where have we seen that before? Oh, right. In every headline that we've seen for the past 2 days. In what's being called an inhumane political stunt, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent plane loads of mostly Venezuelan asylum seekers to Martha's Vineyard on Wednesday. The migrants came from Texas, landing without warning on the island south of Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Texas and Massachusetts are states that Florida Governor DeSantis does not currently govern, but DeSantis is central to this spectacle, telling the Republican Party's top donors last weekend that he was considering transporting migrants to places like Martha's Vineyard. The plan was met with thunderous applause. Migrants in the group told the Miami Herald that they agreed to fly to Massachusetts on the promise of jobs and assistance, but didn't realize that they were bound for Martha's Vineyard. 3 migrants told NPR that a woman named Perla approached them outside a shelter in San Antonio and lured them into boarding a plane, saying that they would be flown to Boston where they could get expedited work papers. She provided them with food, and Perla offered us help, one person said, help that never arrived. According to attorneys, no one on the island knew they were coming, leaving locals to scramble to meet their needs. Immigration attorneys are now working around the clock to understand their legal situations. Here is what one of them revealed last night.
They were lied to again and again and fraudulently induced to board the planes. They were told there was a surprise present for them and that there would be jobs and housing awaiting for them when they arrived. This was obviously a sadistic lie.
Joining me now is Democratic Florida State Representative Ana Eskamani, Glenn Kirshner, MSNBC legal analyst and a former federal prosecutor, and Cristina Londoño Rooney, Telemundo senior Washington correspondent. And Cristina, I know that you are not on Martha's Vineyard, but not far away, and I know that you've talked with some of these migrants. So I want to start with the part I think that, for me anyway, that is interesting to get to the bottom of is the Texas portion of it. The people that you spoke with, did their journey originate in Texas? And did they explain to you how they got from Texas to Florida before being flown to Massachusetts?
Yes, they did, Joy. Good evening. They told me that they were in Texas. They were kicked out of a shelter because they started charging them $85 a day. So they got kicked out, and a woman approached them and told them that she would help them out. They moved to a hotel, and one moment to the next, she tells them, get on these buses. I am going to help you out. This is what they said to me. They were driven to an airport, saw the planes, and were told to get on flights because they were going to be given shelter. They were going to get food, including prepaid credit cards. They were even going to get a surprise on the plane, and they were going to have a chance at starting a new life. Some of them say that the plane, the two flights, it was two flights, they stopped in Florida briefly. Even Florida Governor DeSantis recognized that those flights stopped in Florida, and then they came to Martha's Vineyard.
And just to be clear, the people that you spoke with, they're mostly Venezuelan and Colombian. And I just to clarify, you're in Cape Cod, where the migrants are now. They've been moved to Cape Cod, and that's where you are. Had these families presented themselves as asylum seekers in Texas?
Yes, they had. And that's one of the things that they're very adamant about. They are angry that they're being called undocumented immigrants or illegals, that they can't stand the word, because they say as soon as they got to the United States, they turned themselves in to immigration officials. They were given paroles. We saw the documents that they have. So they're here in a legal, fighting for legal status, and they're trying to do it the right way.
And one more question. Did this woman, who we've just been told the name Perla is the name that we've been given, did they mention that this woman showed them any form of ID to identify what organization she might have been with?
They didn't mention her name to me. They did not know any organizations. They say that they were gullible, they were vulnerable, they were hungry, they didn't have money. They're at the border, and somebody is offering them a flight out. They're offering them jobs, security, shelter for their children. So they decided to take the opportunity. They were put in a hotel. They were fed. So they saw these promises coming true. So that's why they decided to follow her. All of them, not a single one of them told me that they knew they were coming to Massachusetts. Not a single one of them told me that they knew what Martha's Vineyard was. They said they couldn't even locate it in the map, and they didn't even know it existed.
Cristina Londoño Rooney, excellent reporting. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Okay, I want to turn to you, Ana Eskamani. You heard all of that. You are a state representative, a government representative of the state of Florida. What you heard there sounds to me like a story that was about a group of people who presented themselves legally in Texas as immigrants, not as undocumented people, but as asylum seekers, did everything they were supposed to do, and were taken through Florida. Is there anything in the law that was passed in Florida that allocated $12 million to do these removals that says that Texas asylum seekers may be moved using Florida money? Because $12 million was allocated for this, and $615,000 per the Miami Herald were spent on these flights. That is about $12,300 per migrant.
Well, Joy, first of all, I am filled with righteous anger about this action by Governor Ron DeSantis. And in the state budget, we fought to remove these dollars that Republicans added in an effort to pursue their anti-immigrant and, candidly, just their political partisan agenda to continuously pivot blame of real problems onto the backs of immigrants. There is absolutely no reason why Governor Ron DeSantis should be doing this to protect or secure Florida, especially when we're talking about asylum seekers in a different state. And so it is
Right.
unbelievable that Governor Ron DeSantis would do this, but also lure and lie to people in a different state to get into a bus so he can just pursue his greater political ambitions to the harm of vulnerable communities, including children.
To date, the government has recovered more than 11,000 documents, including more than 300 with classified markings from Donald Trump since he left office. While the twice impeached former president continues to deny any wrongdoing, new reporting tonight from the Washington Post shows how the Trump team grossly, and I do mean grossly, misinterpreted both the scale and the variety of government documents under ordinary civilian Donald Trump's control, even earlier than we previously knew. The Post reports that the National Archives was told last year that Trump did not possess any classified materials and that he only had 12 boxes filled with news clippings. That's according to people familiar with the conversations. The Post writes, during a September 2021 phone call with top archives lawyer Gary Stern, Trump lawyer Pat Philbin offered reassuring news. Philbin said he had talked with former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who made the assertion about the dozen boxes of clippings the people familiar with the call said. Trump's team was aware of no other materials, Philbin said, relaying information he said he got from Meadows. As the Post points out, this shows that Trump's former chief of staff was more involved in communications with archive officials than previously known. Meanwhile, we are still awaiting a response from the Department of Justice to last night's ruling by Judge Eileen Cannon denying the agency's request for access to the classified documents seized at Mar-a-Lago and agreeing with Trump's legal team to appoint a special master. It's expected that the DOJ will appeal the judge's decision. Now, remember, the rule of law states that no one is above the law. Everyone is to be treated equally under the law, and everyone is to be held accountable to the same laws. Well, that's not what this Trump-appointed judge seemed to say in her ruling, writing, quote, with the principles of equity, that the principles of equity require the court to consider the specific context at issue, and that consideration is inherently impacted by the position formerly held by plaintiff, unquote. I mean, that sure does seem to contradict the oath that she took as a judge. And it is just one of several perplexing stances that she took in her ruling. Among them was the claim that there is no identifiable emergency or imminent disclosure of classified information arising from Trump's retention of the documents that belong to the government. How could she say that? Well, some of those documents had classified markings dealing with some of this country's most closely guarded secrets, including human source material, a.k.a. information about foreign nationals inside other countries who are working for us. This judge has now commanded our foreign intelligence services to wait around for 2 months before the DOJ can fully investigate what happened with those documents at Mar-a-Lago. What about the 48 empty folders labeled classified? Wouldn't it be in the interest of national security, I don't know, to be able to investigate what was inside them and where those documents wound up? Were they handed over? Are they still at Mar-a-Lago? Are they at another one of his properties? I mean, this sure sounds like an identifiable emergency to me. Joining me now, Andrew Weissman, former FBI general counsel and a senior member of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigative team. And Andrew, I mean, I say this a lot. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. I mean, this judge is essentially saying there's no problem. We can wait until late November. We have national security analysts on this network who are saying people are in the national security world are terrified about what could happen between now and November. We don't know where this material is. How can a member of the judicial branch command the executive branch to not look at documents it owns?
So, Joy, reading her decision yesterday and reading her prior decision, it's like a greatest hits album. I mean, it's hard to know where to begin because there's so many things that are so wrong. I personally think the thing you started with about her saying right out loud that she's going to give former President Trump extra credit and weight here, that violates her oath of office. That require, I mean, it's so fundamentally serious. And then your second point is this is not something where it's like, okay, she violated her oath, but there's no real harm here. I mean, the amount of harm that she just cavalierly throws off is, I mean, it's completely shocking. I've been in the intelligence community. It is beyond belief that she could take the position that she did. And that's why we are all sitting here on tenterhooks waiting to see the Department of Justice to appeal. I'm confident that they will, and we'll see that at some point today.
A couple questions. So, question number one. To go back just for a moment, let me reel back a little bit to the Mark Meadows piece. We now know that Mark Meadows, the Trump team was representing to the National Archives that all Trump had were 12 boxes of newspaper clippings. We don't know whether they knew that was a lie or whether they were being misinformed by Trump or et cetera. But that seems really important, right? That they're not being straight with the National Archives from the very beginning, to the point where clearly the National Archives had to keep coming back and finally get a subpoena and get a judge to give them a subpoena, to give the FBI a subpoena. What do you make of that fact, that it doesn't appear that everybody was being straight from the beginning? Does that indicate to you that maybe Trump wasn't being straight with Mark Meadows?
So, Joy, this is how criminal investigations work. We're getting to see it on the outside, but this is clearly Pat Philbin going, hey, I'm not going to jail over this. So Pat Philbin, right, the lawyer, is like, hey, that's what I was told, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I was told, and I believed it, but, don't look at me, look at him. Well, now that hot potato is Mark Meadows has it, and Mark Meadows is going to have to decide, is he going to own it, or is it going to go to who told him that there were only newspaper clippings? At some point, let's get real. I mean, we're not dealing with an absentee landlord. I mean, this is a micromanager over 18 months, meaning it's Donald Trump at the end of the day who's going to be holding this hot potato. And Mark Meadows is going to have to make a lot of decisions about which side he's going to be on. And we just refer to that in the government as which side of the V do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the United States side, or do you want to be on the defendant's side in the United States versus?
Easy call. Easy call. The special master, exactly. Raymond Dearie, he's now called for a preliminary conference. So he wants them to appear before him on Tuesday, September 20th, at least that's soon, and direct him to submit letters outlining the matters they wish to discuss. The conference close of business Monday. Give me your level of trust here of this person, Mr. Dearie, that he will expeditiously give the government back. I still am stunned that I thought we had co-equal branches of government. I didn't realize the judiciary could say, you can't look at your own stuff. Sorry, FBI. I know it's government stuff, but you can't look at it. But okay, what's your level of trust in what he's going to do, and also in the 11th Circuit, because there's a bunch of Trump judges on there too.
Yeah, so the 11th Circuit, let's leave that to the side for the moment, because the one really good thing and a positive note for the viewers on a Friday afternoon, evening, is we're really fortunate that Judge Cannon is a chicken and has decided that she's not going to roll up her sleeves and do her job, and is going to subcontract that to Judge Dearie. Because after all, she could have just decided, I'll do the review. I mean, but instead, she has got another federal judge doing it. This is where, I know Judge Dearie. Lots of people here know Judge Dearie. Joy, I can tell you, you could not ask for a better selection. He is the epitome of what you want a judge to be. He is smart, he is fair, he has wonderful interpersonal skills, which I think is going to come in really handy in how he deals with Judge Cannon. And I think he will be very good at making her understand sort of how to behave and sort of why he's making the decisions he's making. From the DOJ perspective, the good news is they know their backup is, no matter what happens in the 11th Circuit, they should be able to prevail there. But Judge Dearie is somebody, I always used to say, what you want from a judge is, when you're right, you'll win. And if you're wrong, you'll lose. And, that's all you can really expect. And you'll get that from Judge Dearie.
I'm going to take it, because I will take any good news at this point. Andrew Weissman, thank you very much. I'm wrapping that up in a bow and taking it up.